wasn't crazy about what I saw on Monday Night Raw last night. Wasn't a bad show. Wasn't a great show. Kind of a bit of a forgettable show for me last night on Monday Night Raw.
Was it because of the actual show, or was it because of the crowd?
Well, I'm going to say this, Bully, and I know that Minnesota crowd is getting a lot of heat this morning and got a lot of heat last night. I actually think that it wasn't the crowd, but it was the show. The crowd popped when there were times for it to pop. But I don't think there was a lot of reasons for that Minnesota crowd to get excited last night.
Very interesting that you said that, Dave, that the crowd popped when they were enticed to pop, or when they should pop, or when something went right for them to get excited about. Now, I'm going to take you through just the first half hour of the show. I'm just going to bullet point stuff real quick. We get an in-ring with three of the biggest stars in the WWE, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, and CM Punk. And how would you say the crowd's demeanor was?
Meh.
Which is the same word that I used on social media last night. I said, this segment is meh. Okay, so now, the very first match we saw, I believe it was the first match, it was a tag match that Otis was involved in. Dave, did you hear the crowd when Tozawa gave Otis the hot tag?
Yes.
They blew.
They really did. I mean, that was one of the high points for that crowd last night, was when we got that hot tag.
So let's analyze. Drew, Seth, and Punk, meh. Tozawa gives Otis a hot tag. They blow, and they're going crazy. Out of their seats.
Yes, I agree.
Out of their seats, jumping out of their seats for the hot tag to Otis. And immediately I said to myself, it's not the crowd. And I don't think it was the crowd last night. And a couple of folks on social media said, Uncle Bully, we're hot here tonight. We want to be hot here tonight. We're ready for it. We're just not getting it. So we got 3 hours to talk about this, talk to the nation. What I would really love, and I thought about this last night, and I want to throw this out there real quick, Dave, if you're cool with it. I want to hear from somebody who was in that crowd last night in Minnesota.
I agree.
Whether it's one person or two, I want to know if you thought it was a lackluster show or a lackluster crowd. I don't think it was the lackluster crowd based on just that one small example.
I agree with you, Bully. There were, 3 or 4 times during that show where the crowd was explosive and loud. Because quite honestly, that show only gave you 3 or 4 moments for that crowd to be explosive and loud. And let's start from the beginning, Bully. And I love what you said. 877-344-4893, 877-FIGHT-93. Anybody that was at Monday Night Raw, I would like to hear from them about how was the crowd going into that show and how you felt that show was for the 3 hours on a Monday night, because I thought it was completely forgettable. I really do. I was kind of surprised that they gave us that kind of a show as a go-home show. Now, listen, Bully, when I say it's forgettable, we'll forget about it by the time we get to Saturday and SummerSlam. I'm excited for SummerSlam. I said it on the show yesterday. I don't think they did anything last night that made me less excited for SummerSlam on Saturday, but they certainly didn't do anything to get me more excited for SummerSlam coming up on Saturday. But I would love to hear from the nation, any members that were at that show. And let's start from the beginning. Let's start from that opening segment with Seth Rollins, CM Punk, and Drew McIntyre. And this may be the first time I've said this when it comes to those three in a segment together. Bully, quite frankly, I didn't like the segment. I really didn't like the segment at all.
Do you know why you didn't like it?
I don't know who to root for. Who am I supposed to get behind here?
Okay.
What some of my criticisms, not so much lately, but definitely history will show. A lot of my complaints about AEW, sometimes I don't know who's the heel, who's the babyface, who should I get behind. I certainly felt that way last night during that segment. What I got a lot of, Bully, and maybe we heard it about 11 times, I hate you. Drew saying I hate you to Seth. Seth saying I hate you to Drew. Drew saying I hate you to Punk. Punk saying I hate you to Seth. Punk saying I hate you to Drew. It was like this triangle of hatred between the three of them. And it got towards the end of the segment. I was like, I hate all three of you. I want to see all three of you laying on your back on Saturday. It was annoying as fuck listening to those three bicker back and forth for 20 minutes last night. Am I wrong?
Say that line again.
By the time
it was annoying as F listening to those three grown men bicker. I hate you. I know I hate you. No this, no that. Oh, shut the fuck up already and fight. But that's the problem with the segment last night. I took to social media immediately and I said, the segment was meh. And the crowd's not responding. And there's a reason why the crowd is not responding. Do you know why? And I was really proud of some Nation members on social media last night. Some good, smart wrestling fans, not like smart marks, smart, educated wrestling fans as to why that crowd was so blah for that segment. And I just let the cat out of the bag. So do you know why?
I just can't. For me, I just couldn't get behind any of the three people that were in the ring last night.
And when Seth turns around and you have Drew McIntyre and CM Punk standing face to face. They freaking hate each other. They despise each other. How many times has Punk cost Drew McIntyre the championship or a shot at the championship? Drew McIntyre is holding on to that bracelet, which might seem so trivial to us, but means the world to CM Punk. These guys want to rip each other's throat out. CM Punk and Seth Rollins can't stand each other. Seth went ballistic when they allowed Punk back into the WWE and they didn't smarten him up. There's real animosity amongst these gentlemen. There's professional wrestling animosity amongst these gentlemen. And what do I hear from Seth Rollins right out of the bat? Or right out of the gate, right off the bat? I've been told by Adam Pearce that there's no physicality allowed in this ring, otherwise the match is called off. You have immediately taken the wind out of my sails as a fan. You have now told me I have no reason to get excited or amped up because I might get an opening show brawl, pull apart, fight, a DDT, something. Nothing is going to happen because if something does happen, the match is called off, and we know the match is not going to be called off for SummerSlam. So basically you've told me, as a fan, this is what you've done to me. You told me, sit down, shut up, and listen to our verbiage. And you know what the crowd did? They sat down, they shut up, and they listened to what the guys had to say. There was no sense of urgency like, oh my God, something is going to happen. Don't tell me you're not going to fight. Just don't fight. That's like, you know what I hate? I hate it when I go out with a friend or anybody, and the minute they get there, they tell me, I have to leave in an hour. Well, you know what? You might as well just leave now. Don't tell me you got to leave in an hour. You've already killed the vibe. I'm excited to see you. You're excited to be here, but you've just killed the vibe because you already told me you have to go in an hour. So now every time you look at your watch, you're just taking the fun out of the situation. Instead of telling me you have to leave in an hour, have a blast with me for an hour, and then when an hour is over, go, hey, listen, I got to split. I had the best time. Oh, all right, no problem. You got to go. You got to go. Right?
Well, Bully, you mentioned about being with your friend when they say, I got to go in the hour, and then you're going to be staring at your watch. You're going to be looking at the clock. I got to tell you, I was looking at the clock during that segment last night, waiting for it to be over. I was just waiting for it to be over because, like you just said, there's not going to be anything. Nothing big is going to happen during this segment. They just told us that there can't be any kind of physicality, so you know there isn't going to be any physicality. Seth Rollins, plain as day, said, I'm the referee, but, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm not going by any rules. If I want to count three, I'll count three. If I want to disqualify, I'll disqualify or whatever. That actually all right, what are we going to get for Seth Rollins come Saturday? But it didn't do anything for me in the segment last night on Raw.
So now I don't even know what type of match I'm getting. Now I'm concentrating on Seth. I'm not concentrating on Punk and Drew because it's like, well, Seth said if I want to count three, I'll count to three. If I want to count to 10 on a count out, or if I want to count to 20, must be hanging out with Tony Khan at AEW's inception. If I want to count to 20, I'll count to 20. Like, if I want to DQ you, I'll DQ you. It's like, all right, so now we have to wait and see what the referee wants to do? Like, does this match have a stipulation? Is it a no disqualification match? Is it a street fight? Is it just a regular wrestling match in which he used the word referee's discretion? So it's a regular wrestling match in which Seth Rollins has all the discretion in the world on how he wants to screw these men individually. Who am I paying attention to?
You're paying attention to Seth, and that's why I thought the one line from CM Punk was very significant, because after what Seth Rollins had to say, CM Punk looked at Drew McIntyre and said, Drew, you're a third wheel in this match on Saturday. And I agree. I mean, Drew has done some of his best work going into what last night. We talked about that on the air yesterday, Bully. But after what Seth said in that opening segment, Drew McIntyre does feel like a third wheel in this match going in on Saturday. Like, it was just a very weird, wonky opening segment. So I do not blame for the fans sitting on their hands, because when you have one of your biggest baby faces come out and say to one of your other biggest baby face, I hate you, and then he says the same thing, well, who are the fans supposed to cheer? Who are the fans supposed to get behind? Now, if there was a separate segment with Seth and Seth explained that away from Punk and Drew, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But the fact that he did that with Punk and Drew, the fans had no idea, Bully, who to get behind and who to cheer. And that's why you got such a flat reaction from that Minnesota crowd last night.
This segment did not make me want to see the match anymore. The segment confused me. The segment put the spotlight on Seth Rollins. Side note, I look better in a referee shirt than Seth Rollins does. And I don't know if there's a stipulation on this match or not, or what it's going to be. I'm still intrigued by it, but now I'm confused.
Yeah, and I think now you're going into that match on Saturday not looking to see what Drew is going to do to Punk or what Punk is going to do to Drew, but what is Seth going to do to screw over CM Punk? That's the message that was sent by watching that segment.
Or possibly Drew McIntyre.
Possibly, but I think probably most likely to CM Punk. Another reason why you're not getting a reaction from the crowd, because they're not going to get behind Seth Rollins because they love CM Punk.
And they didn't love CM Punk that much last night, because there was about 30 to 40 seconds of uncomfortable silence when Punk was supposed to talk. And what did Punk do? He went into the old bag of tricks, which was silence. And normally when Punk goes silent, what do the fans chant?
CM Punk.
They didn't last night.
They did. Drew did a good job to get those fans to chant CM Punk. But I think you're right. I think CM Punk thought, all right, all I need to do is just be quiet, and those fans are going to react to me. But unfortunately, by that point, Bully, the fans were completely confused, and they didn't have any idea what was going on in the ring last night.
I'm telling you, telling a fan base to start off the show. Think about it. Monday Night Raw comes on the air. We're live. We're ready to go. Fireworks, explosions. Here we go. We're going to get a great show. Two guys with the biggest rivalry in the company are standing face to face from each other. They can take a swing and hit each other, but there's not going to be any physicality. Ugh. You go out on a date with the girl, you go out on the first date, and the first thing she says to you is, I'm just going to let you know that I'm not kissing you tonight. You've taken the wind out of my sails. Your friend shows up at the bar, just so you know, I can only hang out for an hour. You took the wind out of my sails. You're disappointing me right off the bat. And Lord knows I don't like being disappointed.
Bully, it would have been better off having that segment somewhere in the middle of the show where it was a sit-down with Michael Cole, where Michael Cole is sitting in between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk and talking about the match on Saturday, saying, there can't be any physicality, and then having a completely separate segment with Seth Rollins where you're going like, what's Seth Rollins going to do here? The way they did it, especially to open the show, it just set a bad tone for the rest of the night, unfortunately.
Put 10 security guards in the ring. Have Drew and Punk beat up all the security guards, but then never touch each other. My point is, anything other than having these guys be so close to one another, but no physicality. One of the things that I always tell an opponent, I'll just take the last TNA run, okay? Many times I tell the people that I'm standing across the ring from, do not get too close to me. Once you're too close and once you're in striking range, as the baby, I'm not the baby face. They are. I'm watching out for their best interest. I tell people don't get too close to me because I'm going to say something to you that is going to make the fans want to see you punch me in the face. And if you're standing that close to me and you don't punch me in the face, you're going to look bad. So it's not me saying don't stand too close to me because I should hit you. I should look strong. That's a good spot, just not for Bully Ray. It's me protecting you. Because Dave, me and you, we're best friends. If we got into an argument one day and I was standing right in front of you and I said something very disparaging about Violetta, what would you do?
I'd take a swing at you.
You're damn right you would, no matter what. David and Goliath, you'd take a swing at me.
I would get fucked up afterwards, but I would take a swing at you.
That's not the point. The point is you would take the swing. In a ring, I don't want to put my babyface in a scenario where he can get to me after I say something horrible. I want that distance to be the reason. That even if that babyface takes a step forward to me to show he's got bravado and balls, what can I do? I can step back. I can jump out of the ring. I can show my ass as a heel. I can be the chicken shit for a moment and run. Now I've showed that no matter what I said, you were ready to fight me. What did I get last night? Two guys standing face to face who were told, well, don't you swing at each other or Adam Pearce is going to call the match off. Nobody's calling this match off. Some people think it's the biggest match on the card. Nobody's calling the match off.
And
I'm done.
I actually thought when he showed that band, the band that has his dog's name and his wife's name on that band that means so much to CM Punk, I thought for sure CM Punk was going to take a swing at Drew. And that's where you could have had those security guards where if there was a gap in between them, he could have charged Drew and then they held CM Punk back. And they're literally holding CM Punk back and Drew is just laughing at CM Punk. That would have been a much better end than what we got. I thought they did a much better job last week. Last week, We got Gunther and Damian Priest opening up Monday Night Raw, and they basically had the same segment where it got to the point where Gunther opened up his mouth too much where Damian Priest just let fists fly. And it was great. Like, you know, they're holding back Damian Priest, and Damian Priest is kicking Gunther because they're holding his arms back. Like, that was a much better segment what we saw last week on Monday Night Raw to open the show than what we saw with two much bigger stars last night on the show.
Could you imagine if Pierce would have come out and stood in between the guys, and Pierce would have been the heater and said, guys, I'm standing right here. You're not going to touch each other. You're not going to touch each other because I'm standing right here. Drew, you're not going to touch Punk. Punk, you're not going to touch Drew. And Punk, you're not going to touch Seth. And then you get to the end, and Drew breaks out the bracelet, which enrages Punk, and Punk drops Pierce. And he says, find me. But the match is still on because I didn't touch Drew and I didn't drop Seth. And he gets out of Dodge.
You could have had him drop Seth last night.
What I'm saying is there is so many other ways out of this segment that gives the people something to come up for. They had nothing to come up for last night. Thus, the meh.
And I really don't know what we're going to get on Saturday, Bully, honestly. When you have Seth Rollins, who's the special guest referee, if he said something that he was conflicted, he's going to try his best not to be biased. And you know what? I can be because I have an equal amount of hatred for both Drew and CM Punk. But basically, he just, like, in his Seth Rollins way with laughter and dancing and jumping up and down saying, it's all bullshit. If I don't want to count 3, I won't count 3. If I don't want to count to 10, I won't count to 10. You know, if I want to disqualify you, I'll disqualify you. So all the credibility going into that match is completely thrown out the window. I honestly don't know what we're going to get on Saturday between these two.
I believe that Seth Rollins will call the match right down the middle the whole time until it's time for Seth to not call it down the middle. If he starts screwing around right from the very beginning, let's just say Drew hits a Claymore on Punk right off the bat, and then Seth takes his time dropping down, and he counts 1 slowly and 2 slowly, and then Punk kicks out. Right away, right off the bat, you have preconditioned me to know that, okay, this whole match is built around how Seth Rollins is going to react.
And Bully, isn't that what you are thinking going into Saturday already after what you saw last night? That's the way you're explaining it is exactly how that's going to happen on Saturday. You know right now there's going to be an opportunity where Punk or Drew has the other opponent's shoulders down for 3, and he's going to go 1 and 2 and then stop or be distracted. You already know that going in that this is going to happen.
But if they do it right off the bat in the match, now they have preconditioned the audience to only pay attention to Seth, which I don't believe is a good idea. I think Seth said what he said last night. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll count to 10. I'll count to 20. This will happen. Referee's discretion, blah, blah, blah. Now I think Seth goes into the match and calls it right down to the middle until it matters. Until he screws over Drew with something, and then he screws over Punk with something, and then we'll see what kind of finish that they get into.